Whew. Good morning, everybody. It's me, Spencer Lee, back with another video. Myself and my photography crew just got back from a trip to the Big Island. Yes, we did take another boys' trip to the Big Island, and I did try to film as much as I could, but I just simply ran out of time in the field, so I apologize for just doing another recap video back home on Oahu. This was my first trip using this brand new camera bag from Think Tank. This is the Mindshift Backlight Sprint. It's a small, minimalistic camera bag that can still hold my relatively small super telephoto lens 300mm G Master mounted to the Sony Alpha 1. And while I did enjoy using this bag for its small form factor, it does have some limitations, especially when compared to my bigger, heavier, and more robust Shimoda camera bags. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about it. The good, the bad, and whether or not you should end up getting this bag. All right, so who is this bag ultimately gonna be for? This is going to be for those ultra minimalist photographers that with really small photo kits. And for those photographers that don't really take their photography gear and do their shoots really far into the backcountry. Photographers like myself, lazy photographers that mostly do their shoots near the car, or at the most, maybe do some short little day hike where you're not necessarily having to bring a lot of survival camping equipment out there with you. We did have a few encounters with our favorite Pueo specs, and because I'm such a passenger princess, it was helpful to have this small little camera bag at the feet while my chauffeur Garrett was driving, and having the bag and the camera especially accessible to pull out of the camera bag very quickly once we did see him. We're not off to a great start, guys. We're just driving up in the middle of the road. It's a dead owl. Looks like he got hit by a car, got run over or something. Yep. That is,
oh yeah, look at the feathers.
get the feathers and everything. Dang. That's too bad. Quite a sad sight to see, but hopefully, fingers crossed that wasn't our friend Specs.
Is that it right there? Try to zoom in on that.
Where?
Right.
It's sticking open.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That
it is. Yep.
That is enough.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, guess who it is?
It's back.
He's alive! She didn't die! Speck lives! We also did do a short little day hike on the Pu'u'o Trail. We just did the first 2 miles, so 4 miles round trip. We were of course looking for the critically endangered elusive Akea pola'au, but unfortunately couldn't find them. But instead, we had a great time photographing the io, or the Hawaiian hawks, in flight, as well as some Hawaii elapaio hopping around the forests. Whew, it's a hot day here on the Big Island. This is definitely not helping me get rid of my shirt tan, but we're out here today at Pu'u'o trying to see if we can get some more bird shots. It's not peak season. Last time I came here was peak breeding season for like the EEV and stuff. So it's pretty quiet, but we're hoping that because there's less noise, maybe it'll be a better opportunity to capture the Akea pola'au. And we just saw a hawk fly overhead, so we're gonna head towards that direction. There he is, just flying straight over us. Let's see where he ends up landing. It's a beautiful hawk. So guys, we are about to enter the first Kipuka, and a Kipuka is essentially like an isolated forest. And in the 1980s, Pu'uo'o had a volcanic eruption, and it kind of divided all of these forests and kind of isolated them, so that they're basically separated by huge lava fields, and that creates a perfect environment for biodiversity to develop. And that's why you can find some of these more rare native birds in these type of forests. So hopefully we can see something when we get in there. I just love coming through these forests. They're just so peaceful. Something about it, I don't know. Yeah, when you got just these koa growth forests mixed in with some ohia lehua, it's like the perfect place for birds to breed and for birds to be hanging out and then just enjoying. We're taking a little bit of a break and just kind of wandering around this Kipuka. There's a lot of elapaio. We got one of them. We called him the ugly elapaio because unlike the usual nice like white bottom that they have, this one is very patchy. So it's kind of unique in a way, but yeah, he's the ugly paio, the little, like the ugly duckling story. This one was the ugly elapaio story. Got an ama'o here, and he's working on those akala berries. You can see him right there. Oh, almost got it. Don't give up, buddy. You can do it. Got some killer shots so far. We can get more. So let's just go through a quick little overview of this bag. It has a 15-liter carrying capacity and comes in weighing at only 2 pounds and 5 ounces, or essentially 1 kilogram. This back panel here is the main way that you access all of your equipment. It's just one big compartment essentially. And thankfully this back panel, as well as the waist straps and the shoulder straps, are padded with this aeration material. And while this bag doesn't have any internal pockets or internal sections, it does have a couple of external pockets and external sections that actually come in handy. So this front pocket here on the side opens up like that, and in here I keep my rain covers, the rain cover for the camera bag. These are the Think Tank rain covers for the cameras themselves. You also have space to keep camera straps and all that kind of stuff, as well as a very, very light jacket. But as you can tell, this pocket has 2 liters of space. It really doesn't have a lot of space, so you can't stuff it and fill it with a bunch of stuff. And you can see this is probably the extent at which you can stuff it up and carry things with. Of course, I try to really maximize the amount of camera gear that I do bring into the field, and this is kind of the limit, I would say, with how much stuff you can really put in this side pocket here. You've also got this real small little pocket up here, and they say that you're supposed to use this to store wallet, phone, keys, and whatever, but because it's on your back and facing the rest of the world, I don't feel super comfortable with putting my valuable stuff up here. So when I first started using this bag, I initially left this pocket empty altogether. But what I did find it comes in handy with is, let's say I have my big telephoto lens set up and I'm shooting, or I take it out of the bag and I'm shooting, or I'm about to shoot, and I forget, of course, like all photographers do, forget to take the lens cap off. Because this lens cap for the 300mm G Master is so massive, this front pocket right here is a perfect place to put the lens cap. That way I don't have to open up the whole entire back compartment, put the lens cap in there. It's just a nice quick little place to store items relatively quickly. On the sides, we have identical little pockets for carrying either a water bottle or a tripod. And the thing that I like about these straps in particular, especially when compared to the Shimoda bags, is that these little clips have locks on them. So once you have decided what you want to put into these side pockets, you just simply tighten up the strap as tight as you want it and then lock it. And that way the strap won't accidentally loosen over time. That's a problem that I did encounter with the Shimoda bags. From time to time, all of a sudden I'd be hiking and then the tripod will be loose and kind of dangling on the side, and then I have to go back and retighten the strap. This one, because there's a lock on the clip itself, there's no risk of the strap loosening while you're out there in the field. Speaking of the tripod carrying experience, carrying this Peak Design travel tripod as well as my main tripod that I'm filming on right now on the side, just, you know, with this one little strap here, was probably the best carrying experience that I've ever had carrying all of my camera gear plus the two tripods. Typically when I'm carrying the big heavy Shimoda bag, I avoid mounting both of the tripods onto the bag just because the bag gets so heavy with both of the tripods on it, plus all the camera gear. But honestly, I didn't mind carrying all of my camera gear with this bag, as well as the two tripods mounted, as well as a water bottle in this front compartment, which we'll talk about later. Going back to the front of the bag, it's made with a relatively water resistant material. It's not the tarpaulin material that you see on both like Wandered bags as well as Shimoda bags. So it's probably less water repellent than those two bags. But I did happen to test this again on the Big Island. We shot this beautiful sunset at the Kona drains, and essentially our backs were facing the ocean and we were getting splashed by waves constantly. So I did do a little bit of test of the water resistance of this bag and it performed just fine. All right, so we moved close to the drains. Here we are. You can see into the drain here. My goal is to try and get this section of the drain coming down from that side while we get waves washing over it like that. Oh, that's nice. And then hopefully the sky lights up as well. The sketchy thing is that the waves are coming in hot this direction, just like that. It's a good thing I got this. It's a good thing I got this Canon shooter here to shield me from most of the damage. Check this out, this is insane. Yeah, it's like you can see the rays coming out from right there. So cool. All right, so like the idiots that we are, we decided to move a little bit closer to the ocean. That looks like it's gonna hurt. But moved a little bit closer to the drain, and look at this angle here. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Look at that angle. And look at this sky. We got the vertical shot, 14 mil. I think this might be the best shot of the night here. All right, so just finished off this sunset. Absolutely beautiful, but I guess the question that is more applicable to this video is, did the Think Tank bag survive those big, heavy saltwater waves that we got splashed with? We'll see. Let's open things up here and see if my $6,000 300mm G Master is still intact here. The outside of the bag is a little bit wet. Inside of the camera bag is just fine. I'm gonna reach inside here to the external pocket. The inside of the bag is pretty bone dry, so I wouldn't necessarily submerge this bag or get it caught in a downpour, but for light rain, light little saltwater waves, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. And when we talk about the strap system when it comes to these camera bags, the camera bag straps are very well padded, again with that aeration material, and they're kind of overly padded if that makes any sense at all. These padded straps are actually thicker than the padded straps that come on my Action X30, so I really felt very supported with a smaller camera bag and thicker straps and yeah, it just made the carrying experience a lot better. The sternum strap on these shoulder straps, I actually prefer a lot more than the Shimoda ones as well, just because you've got a little bit more adjustability in terms of height. So the straps can come up a little bit higher and also drop down a little bit lower. And you know, when you're doing longer hikes, having the ability to adjust the position of the sternum strap to modify to your body definitely is a more welcome feature to have. And then when it comes to the waist straps, these waist straps are not a part of the bag. They are detachable waist straps. They are a little bit more difficult to tighten than most waist straps, but once you do kind of get them tight, they work just fine. And then of course, loosening up the shoulder straps, you can definitely feel the weight of the bag kind of sink down onto the hips. And because again, the bag is so relatively lightweight and portable, you don't necessarily need the waist strap, but of course I'd rather have the waist strap than not have the waist strap. I do wish maybe it was integrated or removable, kind of like how Shimoda does by passing it through the back panel. That way, when you do use the waist strap, it feels a little bit more of a part of the bag than separate from the bag. But overall, I think it's a decent carry experience. So what fits inside this camera bag, it really is kind of limited to the essential camera gear items. There ain't a lot of room for stuff in this bag here. You got this section that I normally put in my telephoto lens setup in there. Ooh, breaking things already. Vlog setup up here. You got Astro lens, 14 mil, Tamron 28-200, and just this small little pocket down here for accessories. Not much. More importantly, I wanted to talk about what I would usually bring into the field, but what doesn't fit inside this camera bag. The first being a drone. Typically, I always like to have a drone just to grab a quick little shot, B-roll shot for the vlog. So I do own two drones, both the DJI Mini 4 Pro, here's the controller, as well as the ever elusive DJI Mavic 4 Pro. So again, you can see that both of these drones, just due to their size, doesn't fit inside this camera bag. But I do have a solution on how I can carry those two items. If I were to take the Mini, I would use this guy right here. This is the Moment camera pouch thing. Usually you would stuff a camera with a wide angle lens in here, but it's actually the perfect size to put the drone controller as well as the Mini 4 Pro here. Zip that up. And then you've also got a nice handy little spot for the Peak Design capture clip. So let's put this bag back on here. I actually have two places that I could put the little pouch if I did want to carry the drone here. Usual spot, shoulder strap, just strap it in like that. Doesn't add too much bulk, doesn't add too much weight. I also added this second capture clip to the side here, just so I could give myself a little bit more options. You can actually carry it here on the waist. Hopefully you guys can see that there. Very easy, very minimal. Doesn't add too much size, doesn't add too much bulk. Now, when it comes to bringing the DJI Mavic 4 Pro, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge because of course this thing is bigger. This thing essentially can't fit in the small little compartment here. And that's where this bag comes in handy. This is the Peak Design 10-liter sling bag. So the laptop usually goes in here. The drone can fit in there nicely with plenty of room to spare. Obviously, if I was using the Shimoda bags, you'd have adequate room to bring both of those drones, plus all of this camera gear as well. Typically, when we're shooting and going on trips, there are a couple of more pieces of camera equipment that I would typically bring, but on this particular trip, I decided to leave at home. The first one is the extra Astro lens, which is usually the 24mm 1.4 G Master that I'm filming on. So just for a placeholder, this is the 20mm G lens, but the extra Astro lens, I just decided to leave at home. I only brought 2 camera bodies on this trip, so I didn't need 3 Astro lenses. I figured I could get away with using the 20mm for vlogging and the 14mm for stills because the Milky Way was so high up in the sky already. And I kind of touched on it earlier. I would typically like to bring a third camera body or a backup stills camera body just in the off chance that I was an idiot and broke my main camera body, the Alpha 1 Mark II. I would have a backup with the original Alpha 1 because again, this bag is so small, so limited in terms of its size and what it can carry. I just opted to leaving the backup camera body at home. The other thing too that doesn't fit is bulky clothing, camping gear, and other survival items. And the solution that I had for this was essentially just pack all the clothes and carry it in a duffel bag and leave that duffel bag in the car until I actually needed it. We did do a couple of Milky Way missions up on Mauna Kea. I packed up all my cold weather clothes in the duffel bag and just left it in the car while we were out shooting during the day. And then once we arrived to our Milky Way spot, I threw on the cold weather clothes and left the duffel in the car. There was no need to kind of stuff the clothes into the camera bag and carry them into the field because again, we were doing lazy landscape photography, just kind of shooting close to the car. So we didn't necessarily have to pack things in the bag itself. And on our short little day hike on Pu'uo'o, I did bring a lightweight jacket, but it did get hot relatively quickly. So I took off that jacket, and because I was carrying the 300mm G Master essentially on my hip, I had that extra space in the camera bag to put in the lightweight jacket and just kind of stuff it in there. And if I, for whatever reason, decided that the camera needed to go back inside the camera bag, I could have just easily wrapped the jacket around my waist and carried it that way. I've kind of been doing this already, but I did want to make a dedicated section to how this camera bag compares versus my usual Shimoda camera bag, which is the Action X30. Overall, just due to its smaller size, lighter materials, and all that kind of stuff, the Backlight Sprint takes the edge in terms of comfort. Typically, when it comes to these small bags, they're, I would say, a little bit shorter, but this bag kind of extends the length of the bag a little bit to make it a little bit more taller and less wide, which is actually a good thing because the bag can kind of stretch itself across the length of your spine, and it actually allows the waist straps to essentially do their job, especially for somebody like me, small little 5'4" Asian man. The hip straps actually rest in the proper place when it comes to this bag, and the shoulder straps can kind of contour a little bit better to the body because I'm a little bit of a shorter person. And yeah, just because it is smaller, you can actually get away with using this as a personal item for travel. I found that traveling with the Action X30, you can get away with it using it as a personal item, but it does come at the sacrifice of sacrificing legroom. But the downside of using this guy as a personal item is that, again, space is limited. So all the camera gear or personal item gear that you would be putting in, let's say, a Shimoda bag needs to go somewhere else. It has to go either in your checked bag or in your carry-on bag. It's gonna make your travel experience with either your carry-on or your checked bag a little bit more of a challenge. And once again, when we look at the shoulder straps for these two bags, you can see I love these Shimoda shoulder straps because they have these extra pockets here, water bottle, personal items like a phone and stuff is all built into the Shimoda bags. But you know, the Think Tank shoulder straps are, while they are better padded than the Shimoda bags, they're kind of limited here. So that's where this guy, again, the Matador Speed Stash, is kind of my hack when it comes to adapting camera bags to look a little bit more like Shimoda bags. This Matador Speed Stash is a little bit thicker than the personal item strap on the Shimoda bag. So you can fit a smaller water bottle, you can fit a passport, phone, wallet, keys, and all that kind of stuff. So, and one of the things that I love the most about these Shimoda bags is the fact that when you have the bag kind of flat on the ground and you're accessing your camera gear, you've got this strap down here at the bottom, as well as the strap up here at the top, and it allows you to kind of easily move the camera bag from side to side across the ground and that kind of stuff. Whereas when it comes to the Think Tank, you only get this strap here on the top. So when you lie the camera bag on the ground, you have to kind of scoop underneath the bag, and because it's so light, it's really not that big of a deal, and move it kind of like this. But for me, I really developed the habit of using a strap here on the bottom. So I essentially took like some of these, I forget what they're called, but these straps here, these camera bag straps, and just slid it onto, and just attached it onto the bottom of the Think Tank bag. Thankfully, the colors match, so that's a good thing. But now the bag can function a little bit more like a Shimoda bag. And yeah, these two little modifications to this bag, the Speed Stash as well as the little strap here on the bottom, kind of mimic the Shimoda usability experience without the bulk and the heftiness of the Shimoda bag experience, which is something that I really do enjoy. And another big one, of course, is that the Shimoda bags, of course, are big enough to that they have a dedicated laptop carrying compartment, whereas obviously this bag is so small and so skinny, essentially, that it doesn't really have the space to store a laptop compartment, which is fine because honestly, for me, as somebody who, again, mostly does day hikes or shoots close to the car, I'm not ever really carrying my laptop into the field. All right, this next difference is kind of the biggest difference between the Shimoda bag and the Backlight Sprint, and it's the use of internal camera dividers versus ICUs, or internal camera storage units. On the Backlight Sprint, again, it's a very simplistic design. It literally just has one big compartment, and that compartment is separated by dividers so that you can store camera gear, but there is no extra pieces going on here. Whereas when it comes to the Shimoda bags, in here I've got the extra large mirrorless core unit for the Action X30, and it's essentially one big core unit that turns the whole entire bag into a essentially what looks more like the Backlight Sprint, one big compartment to store camera gear. But the good and bad thing about the Shimoda bags is that you don't necessarily have to use the extra large mirrorless cord unit. They have a large that sits a little bit lower. They also have a small and a medium that goes even lower. And that modularity can be helpful, especially if you're swapping out different pieces of camera gear, different pieces of equipment. Let's say you wanted to take more hiking gear and less camera gear, you can have the modularity to swap all of that stuff out if needed. But the problem that I have with internal camera units or camera cubes is that they just kind of add bulk and weight to the camera bag. And my tendency is to just go for the largest camera cube and fill it up with all the camera gear that I could find, which is another problem that I'm currently working on to try and solve with this minimalist camera bag. But regardless, yeah, whenever you're using a camera cube, it's gonna add extra weight to the camera bag, which again, puts a strain on your back, puts a strain on your body. But of course, when it comes to the Backlight Sprint, you've just got, again, just a system that is just very simple, minimalistic, easy to look at, very simple in my mind, and just reduces the size and the weight of the camera bag. And that's essentially all I want. I think that all camera bag manufacturers should at least give us the option to use a camera bag like this where there's no cubes and it's just dividers, and you can just divide up the bag and use the space inside the bag as efficiently as possible, because anytime you use a cube like this, you're gonna lose just a little bit of space. You're not going to be using the capacity of the bag as efficiently as possible. Anyways, kind of summarizing our discussion when it comes to this bag. Again, I really love how small, lightweight, portable, and minimal this camera bag is. And the fact that it can carry 2 tripods on the side without feeling like it's breaking my back is a big, big plus for me. I don't love the fact that it's so limiting and so restrictive in the sense that I can't put in survival stuff like jackets and all that kind of stuff. But in some ways, that's actually a good thing, because I feel like if I had the extra space to put that extra stuff, I would always use it to store extra camera gear. So the fact that I am limited in that sense, in some ways is a good thing, but it's also something that I don't like about this bag. I think this is going to be my camera bag of choice moving forward, especially when I know that I'm gonna be shooting with my friends and I'm gonna be doing kind of like my lazy landscape photography type of shoots, again, where I'm not hiking super far, or I'm not doing any sort of camping, or I'm not bringing a lot of camera gear, and I want to be just as lightweight and minimal as possible. But I'm still planning on holding on to a couple of my Shimoda bags. The Action X30, I definitely still want to keep, just in the off chance that I need to really maximize the amount of camera gear that I'm bringing. I am planning on going back to Alaska this year to photograph some more aurora with my friends. And one of the mistakes that I made on my Alaska trip was that I didn't bring the second camera body. So definitely going to use this bag to kind of maximize the amount of camera gear that I can bring. I'm also keeping my Urban Explorer 25. I did purchase the RST core units for the 25 liter size. And because I have that core unit in that particular bag now, I can actually carry my 300mm G Master fully mounted to the Alpha 1. But honestly, I'd love Shimoda to kind of design something that's very similar to this type of bag, because I do wish that it had more, I guess, durable material. And you know, there's obviously some things that I miss about the Shimoda bag, and that's why I've kind of modified this camera bag to kind of fit like a Shimoda bag. But I just mostly wish that they gave us the option to really maximize the efficiency of how we carry our camera gear by letting us choose between camera cube or internal dividers, and just using the camera bag without dividers. That way, it just reduces the amount of weight that the camera bag has overall, lets us maximize the amount of camera gear that we can carry, and while still maintaining the modularity and the flexibility of these Shimoda bags. I think there is definitely a lot of potential to make something that is this small that can still carry this type of camera gear that doesn't necessarily have the bulk and the weight that these current Shimoda bags have. But yeah, this video was just essentially recapping the trip that we just went on, while at the same time just giving my overall thoughts about this Backlight Sprint camera bag. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you like this type of content, this travel, vacation, a little bit of photography education, hit that like button, comment below, subscribe if you aren't already. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.